Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of our Open Innovation Thursdays. My name is Marisol Menendez. I'm an open innovation practitioner and enthusiast. I have my own company, Vilacatu, based in Bilbao, where we work in open innovation and ecosystem orchestration. Are my biggest and most interesting ecosystem is with an ecosystem of female leaders. And so you can see that I live and breathe open innovation and ecosystem orchestration. And that's why it's such a joy to have every week 15 minutes to talk with the experts in open innovation that participated in the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation, a book edited by Henry Chesbrough, Agnieszka Radziwiłł, Bim van Haverbeek, and Joel West, edited and published last year. And we are speaking with each of the authors every week for 15 minutes about open innovation. And today it's a joy to have the great Hilary Carter with me today. Welcome, Hilary. How are you?
I'm so well, thank you, Marisol. It's really nice to be here today.
It's really nice to have you and a privilege to have this opportunity to talk to you about what I know you're passionate about and to share these few minutes to discuss about open innovation. But Hilary, I always like to dedicate a bit of time to learn about the person behind the chapter. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I work at the Linux Foundation. I lead the research function of what we call Linux Foundation Research, or LF Research, which was established in 2021 to investigate open source trends, challenges, opportunities, impact, and ubiquity and proliferation in different contexts within different industries, and have an empirical metric behind some of our findings, an empirical methodology, and create an open database that would support academia, would support practitioners, it would support policymakers to better understand what was taking place in open source project communities.
This is so very interesting, and we have a lot to discuss. This is a very interesting and really relevant topic nowadays. Maybe I can ask a further question. What did you study, and how can one end up doing what you do?
Wow. Well, I studied political studies as an undergraduate and then went on to study management from the London School of Economics. In my political studies, there was always an economic focus or a global political economy focus. It's hard to decouple economics from politics and those two agendas. And I also found that a degree that studied systems and collaboration, like political systems and international political collaboration, and how we create the structures of peace, how we create the structures of trade, how we create the global structures of finance, were very compatible with what's taking place now in technological communities around massive collaboration, around technological ideas and technological innovations, and how it's incumbent upon us all over the world to work together to achieve modernization and benefit for people and planet. So that's my undergraduate and graduate academic focus, Marisol. The first part of my career began in financial services. So I had an industry training, and it was global financial services. I worked for international banks. The last 5 years of my financial services career, I worked for a Swiss bank. And that gave me tremendous exposure to um, international systems and trade and cooperation around banking and the movement of money and regulatory constraints, international laws governing things like anti-money laundering and prohibiting the receipt of funds from illegal activities or from the proceeds of crime, things like that. So it was an excellent training ground, and it always kept my interest alive in all things related to financial systems and economics. And then I segued into communications, and that gradually segued into technology research, which was a period of transition over about 8 years. What was interesting was my communications and early authorship work as a writer and a researcher for publications was at a time when the internet was just emerging, and my early clients were print magazines and print newspapers, and I witnessed the impact of technology um, transforming and disrupting industries that were hundreds of years old and having a real impact. And then the dawn of the mobile phone changed everything again. It changed the way we're communicating. The applications that we were using on mobile phones were unique. They allowed us to communicate with people that were outside of our network. And that created incredible business opportunities. So I increasingly became interested in tech, self-studied, ended up running a research institute specific to blockchain technology. And that was a nice intersection with my banking background and my interest in communicating complex technology subject matter for people who were non-technologists. And that ultimately led me to work with the Linux Foundation project communities and then ultimately join the Linux Foundation in 2021. So that's my background from academia to professional to present day.
This is so interesting, and this helps also to understand the connection among the different threads that we intertwine across our lives. No, I think it's interesting in practitioners that we follow this thread of lines of interest, and of course, money, technology are all these over present elements in our lives. So interesting, Hilary. And this led you to write chapter number 45 of the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation, which is measuring the economic value of open source software. You are the sole author, Hilary Carter, and this is chapter, as I said, number 45, part of the section 8 called Open Innovation in Practice. So we are talking about practice, and this is, by the way, I think a very interesting chapter for all of us practitioners, but also with transversal topics. My question here would be, how come this chapter ended up in the book? How did you become part of the project?
Well, I was very pleased to have had the opportunity to collaborate with Dr. Chesbrough when we first set up the research function at the Linux Foundation, inviting his perspective to influence our research agenda and our program and our studies. As an academic, as an honorary academic expert, and someone whose perspective was really valuable. And we worked with Dr. Chesbrough um, to create a new study that would try to improve how we measured the economic impact of open source. The data had not yet was not well developed by our community. It remained a mystery, and we wanted to see if we could get a better sense of measuring the value of open source software, open source projects um, in a material way, because that tends to impact decision making. If we could get some numbers behind the impact of these projects and their value. Experientially, we knew that open source software is the foundational layer for the modern digital economy, and that companies all over the world were taking dependencies on open source to build their products. But we needed more empirical measurement to back that up. And so it was a delight to engage Dr. Chesbrough in this effort to conduct a research study. And at the time we started writing the chapter, Dr. Chesbrough, as the editor of the Oxford Handbook, invited me to contribute a chapter on what I understood from the Linux Foundation's perspective about the value of open source. How did it relate to um, uh, other elements of my career and my personal experience, and how people make decisions around procurement and how we value what we pay money for. And that translated back to part of my career working for a Swiss bank, where premium products, luxury goods, were deemed to be of higher value because people pay more for them. And how do you then translate value for something that's otherwise free in the world that people don't pay money for and they can take it and use it as they see fit? So I thought that was an interesting area to explore, and Dr. Chesbrough set me free to do so. And I can't while I am the sole author of the chapter, I can't say I acted alone in that. I did leverage the insight of Linux Foundation resources, other experts on the LF team, my colleagues to help me provide some of the data and the perspectives, and working with a former executive editor to do a peer review of the chapter and make sure that it was sound yet authentic to me and my experience and my voice and the way I viewed the economic value of open source through research and through everyday experience, and how we need to change perceptions around it through data, most especially.
So interesting. I think one of the great challenges of many of the initiatives that we do, not only in open innovation, but all these trends is measuring, no? So there's the mystery. So let's open that box. What are the main learnings and takeouts from the chapter?
So the main takeaways is that open source remains challenging to measure in economic terms. One of the findings from the Dr. Chesbrough report is that the qualified respondent in our survey community, at the Linux Foundation, we have hundreds of thousands of developers who are engaged with our research, our projects, and they're very active contributors. And so in taking a survey, there's a level of expertise that open source experts have as it relates to open source trends, usage, contribution, metrics, and so on. But what becomes challenging is connecting the price of a product that is built using open source software with the use of that software in the build cycle itself. And so having enough input in a study from people who can perfectly correlate the revenues generated from products that are specifically linked to the open source components remains a very challenging exercise. And so we have to explore new ways to and build new models to improve upon how we measure the economic value of open source. There are existing models that measure open source value from, a GDP perspective, or we're looking now at the LF to measure the value of the code contribution itself. When people from organizations spend time contributing code or even reviewing the code contributions of others outside of their firm within an open source project community, how is that relevant to value within an organization? And as it turns out, there's lots of value. There's lots of value. What has happened, Marisol, is we haven't definitively captured this from a single study, but from a number of studies. We've had work published from Frank Nagel at Harvard, who's used our data sets. He's now our chief economist at Linux Foundation, using our data sets to create a metric around the $8.8 trillion of value that if organizations had to rebuild all of the software that they currently use today that's open source, what that supply side value is like. But cumulatively, I gave a talk recently about the value of open source contributions in a number of contexts. One of them was in terms of risk management and policy risk management. For example, the European Cyber Resilience Act is a policy that's going to impose stiff penalties, very, very high economic penalties on companies who do not comply. Companies who are selling products with digital elements in the European Union will have to meet strict cybersecurity requirements. That's an element of risk management. It's been shown through studies, one of which led by the Linux Foundation, that organizations who are presently engaging in open source project communities are in a much better position to understand their risk exposure as it relates to legislation and potentially punitive penalties compared to organizations who are not. So the value of risk management is real. The value of having access to tools and resources that improve your cybersecurity risk profile is another value proposition. The value that comes by way of engagement in innovation communities. Right now, it's around open source AI. What's the value that companies are getting by using open source models in their AI innovation? Well, it's shown to be a large benefit in terms of opportunities to both lower costs and increase revenue. And finally, the value of engaging in open source communities for the purpose of retaining high quality technical team members. The costs of technical employee turnover are very high. The efficacy of hiring talent, the cost of hiring talent when they have a propensity to leave within 6 months is very high. So trying to capture different types of economic ongoing challenge, and it's something that we're pursuing in a number of projects, as well as trying to redefine a model for better capturing the value of contribution to open source across the product development life cycle. Or I should say, yeah, product development life cycle, but also the life cycle of a project. So it's a big question to answer. We haven't answered it yet, and I'm excited to try to answer it over the course of the next several years.
And it's a multi-layer question as well. So I figure that the results keep moving and building. So whenever you think you have the answer, there are new questions as well. So I think it's the perfect question for research to look into practice as well, because of the presence that we have so spread around of open source software. And you made me think also of some questions that we frequently find in many open innovation projects, where you can see the value when you have the things built, but it's difficult to try to anticipate the value that it will have in the future, no? And so we are trying to play in these different speeds. So interesting, Hilary. I know for a fact that all these researches that you were talking about and activities that you do from in Linux Foundation are very interesting. I also invite everyone, and this is not rehearsed, to look into the webpage, because there are so many interesting things to look at, and of course to read the chapter. We are getting close to the end, so I might only ask, do you have any final call to action, any final thought you want people to have in their hearts when they read this chapter? You can appeal to academics, to practitioners, anything.
Well, that's a wonderful opportunity. I cannot say enough about my own personal experience and enrichment, having engaged in open innovation activities, open source community activities, the breadth of knowledge that can be gained by collaborating outside of your organization is truly mind-boggling. It's an incredible opportunity for professional development, for organizational success. And I would encourage people to lean into the opportunities that open communities create and to read as much as they can about the value and about the opportunities to capture some of that value through engagement, self-selecting to be a part of open innovation. It not only feels great to do and is very rewarding intrinsically, but there are economic benefits to doing so. So stay engaged, read up, and I think folks will find incredible value in the resources that joyfully are publicly available. It's a matter of just choosing to do so. So my CTA is please do get involved.
This is amazing. And I also remember one thing I learned from you, a fun fact, is that open software is very, very present, for example, in Pixar movies, no? And things that we
Yes.
see and enjoy every day. So beware and be ready to enjoy and learn the benefits of this. Hilary,
Yeah.
it's
I'm so
so
glad you mentioned that, Marisol. Thank you.
it's so amazing. Always, always a pleasure to talk to you and share our common interest in open innovation. And thank you very much for sharing this time with us. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you very much. It's great to see you again. Look forward to connecting soon.
Thank you very much. And everyone, see you in our next chapter of Open Innovation Thursdays. Thank you.